Let's see. Timer's going to go here. There it is. I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joined by my buddy Daniel Culver. We're here to talk Dark Shadows. What else? Well, usually we do talk other stuff, me and Daniel. But you're at 365, man. You're about to you're going back to 1795, man. Holy hell. How's the trip been? So,
Well, that's pretty good.
um, so what do you think about Barnabas so far?
I think he's a pretty interesting character.
Yeah.
It seems like he's going to turn to a good guy with how Sarah says, she doesn't like that he's doing bad stuff.
Yeah, Sarah Collins is Barnabas. For those who don't know, for those who have never seen Dark Shadows, um, Sarah Collins is Barnabas Collins' sister, and she's a ghost. And she first appears when Maggie is kidnapped and held in the downstairs basement in the dungeon, so to speak, in the cell. Um, Somebody else is going to get held there later on in the series. But I won't spoil it for my buddy Daniel here. It is not a woman. That's what I'll say. But Sarah's really interesting as a ghost compared to Josette, who we see early on. What do you think of the difference between Josette and Sarah?
That's actually a good question. I would say, I know this is probably a basic one, but I would say Sarah is more innocent than Josette, because she's a child.
Yeah, there's what's really weird is you you get this sense that because before Barnabas ever arrives, you know this, there's a phoenix, Laura. And Josette has this interaction with there's this brief encounter with Josette and Laura. And Laura's holding David and Josette's ghost appears and she says, "He's mine, Josette, he's mine." So you sort of get the sense that Laura knows Josette. And it's really weird. So that's prior to Barnabas. And then when and here's the I'll bring up something, but then I want to ask you this question because it's really good. Josette did it because you know this. Josette did everything in her power to help stop the Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, she uses Vicky as a tool, as a weapon, so to speak, or at least an agent. So she make because she knows the Phoenix is wanting to destroy David. Here's Josette, who just did her damnedest to protect the family. Here's Jason and Willie coming into town. Now, Jason brings Willie along with him. Now, no one knows what's going to happen other than Josette and the ghost. Basically, the ghosts know. Like the widows, whether it's the widows, whether it's Josette, the ghosts pretty much have a keen eye of what's going on around Collinsport, and at least Collinwood, especially Josette. So here's Willie Loomis, who's looking into the Collins family, starts looking into the Collins family history after having his ass handed to him by Burke Devlin. And he's looking in, and he discovers all the Collins family jewels. Naomi was buried with her jewels. So he's going to go rob Naomi's grave in the mausoleum. Now, Josette knows Barnabas and knows where he's buried, knows where his coffin is as a ghost. She does dick, and I mean dick, to stop Willie Loomis. She does nothing. So let me ask you this. Why do you think she does nothing to stop it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, maybe it's because she knows Barnabas. Well, I mean, her spirit knows Barnabas is in the grave. And who knows? Maybe she wanted him released, but I don't know if that's a good answer.
No, it is. I actually agree with you. It's an answer I gave way, way, way back because here's the thing too, dude. Dark Shadows for them is all about consequences. And well, it's not the only thing it's about, but there's a lot of consequence in Dark Shadows. There's a consequence for letting Laura roam free, right? There's a consequence for not stopping Laura. Josette's not gonna not stop Laura. She knows because what you're going to learn in 1795, but I'm not going to spoil this for you. You're going to learn all about Josette and Barnabas here soon because you're going into 1795. For those who don't know where Daniel is, he is at episode 365. It's really, and again, I don't want to spoil what happens, but it's all going to make sense really during 1795, not just post 1795. A lot of what happens, Barnabas getting out, why she let him out, why basically she did nothing to stop it, all of that is going to make sense in 1795. And that's the beautiful part about 1795, really. There's a lot of bad shit about 17, not story wise, just there's a lot of bad stuff that happens. I won't spoil it for you, but be prepared.
Oh yeah, I'm actually to be honest, I'm actually at episode 370. Well, you
all
know how like some episodes they are two numbers because but
yeah,
I'm still not very far in.
right. Daniel's right. A lot of the episodes are two numbers, or they're just back to back. They're together. They're so which is really cool. But what did you think of Jason McGuire and Willie Loomis?
Um. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I hate to admit this, but I had to remember who Jason McGuire is. I know. I hate to admit that, but yeah. But obviously, that's thing is that the other criminal. But yeah, he is. But yeah, they seemed like pretty bad people.
Yeah. Who do you think was worse, Jason or Willie?
Um. Honestly, I would say Jason. I know some people might say Willie, but I would say Jason because he seems like more of the mastermind of it all.
Yeah, he he is. I give Jason this for a heel because you're not done. I'll give this hint, this giveaway. You're not done seeing charming heels in Dark Shadows. Um, Jason and really Burke, though he's an anti-hero, can be charming and heelish at times, but he's not a heel. He's more of an anti-hero. Now with Jason, there's no anti-hero at all. He's charming, but he's a charming asshole.
Yeah.
Dennis Patrick, fun little tidbit for you because I'm gonna be discussing the House of Dark Shadows movie tomorrow night. This is pure fun because Dennis Patrick does not play a Jason McGuire in the House of Dark Shadows movie. He actually plays Sheriff George Patterson.
Oh, interesting.
So I mean, I've sort of told you before that the movies are different than the series, and that's sort of one way. Uh, because they, I believe Dana Elker was busy during this time, so they couldn't get him to play the sheriff. Because Dana Elker, for those who don't know, plays Sheriff George Patterson currently on Dark Shadows. Um, that's going to change eventually, but he's I think he's the one everybody remembers most. I mean, he's a standout actor. He's one of the most well liked actors, not just on the show, but he's been in other shows called like MacGyver, obviously. But he plays Sheriff George Patterson. So I gotta ask you, we don't see Barnabas like kill any prostitutes, but it's sort of inferred that that's what Willie's getting for him, like these women, so he can drain their blood or attack them. So, what did you think of when Barnabas gets out of the coffin? A bunch like some dead cattle turn up dead with their blood professionally drained. They mentioned this in the Blue Whale. Joe Haskell, lovable Joe Haskell, played by Joel Carruthers, um, mentions it to Maggie Evans and Burt Devlin, and about they found the calf drained of blood, professionally drained, as he puts it, of all its blood. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what's your favorite? Because Dark Shadows was filmed on a sound stage. What's your favorite set so far?
My favorite set, I would say um I think it's called the foyer or whatever. You know the I think it's called a foyer. I'm not sure, but the scene the one where there's like stairs.
Yeah, the foyer. Yeah, you're right. Um, yeah, that is a great setting. I think that's one of the most popular settings in Dark Shadows. Um, I'm a sucker for Widow's Hill, and here's why. Listen, anytime you can have a giant cliff of death in a show, it's gold. It really is. Because here's the beautiful part of it too, and nobody, nobody ever stays away from that damn hill.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, Victoria goes out there and looks at the sea. You got Roger Collins goes out there. Elizabeth is goes out there. And it's just like, my God, it's like they need if it's sort of like like how there's the sign on the beach for Jaws, no swimming. There's a shark. You could have a sign on at Widow's Hill, no standing near the hill. No, but nobody would even read that damn thing. Okay, go ahead, Dan. But yeah, it's really interesting that Widow's Hill is a very much a staple in the show. So is the foyer, really. I mean, a lot of people make their entrance at the door. Give me 1 second. Thank you. But yeah, the foyer is a main staple too, because a lot of people are coming in and out of the house. Now, I think what's most interesting about the house itself is it has a lot of secret passages, and now some of those are going to Barnabas uses some of those, but they've been used before in the show. Roger Collins used the secret passage that's in the drawing room to go to the West Wing to find Victoria locked in a room where David locked her. You also, the window, now it doesn't get used here right away, but it's going to get used. I don't want to say quite a bit, but it gets used a couple times, like I think once in 1795 and a couple times during the Adam arc. I won't say who uses it, but the window entrance in the drawing room where you see Elizabeth open it up, and a bunch of people open it up, obviously, but Elizabeth mainly opens it, and sometimes Carolyn. But that does get used as an entrance and an exit times in the series, which is really cool. I like the fact that there was this when Elizabeth when you first see Elizabeth open that window, you're sort of like, has anyone ever crawled through there or gone through the window just to enter a different way in the house? And that question sort of gets answered well, it does get answered in Dark Shadows in a big way, and in a small way too. There's a lot of one of the best elements too about the house itself, and where Daniel's saying the foyer. You always see Mrs. Johnson. If she's not coming into the house, she's coming out of the kitchen. And I always love this in the early episodes. And even when Mrs. Johnson is just coming out of the kitchen, it's like, what's that woman cooking in there now? And she's probably got a 45 or something, or like a 6-shooter tucked underneath the kitchen sink or something. Mrs. Johnson, the spy for Bert Devlin. Oh my god, she's great. Oh my god, Sarah Johnson, Mrs. Sarah Johnson. She is. You could tell too. She was in love with Bert Devlin. I mean, bad or sorry, not Bert Devlin, but Bill Malloy. She was in love with Bill Malloy bad. I mean, she wanted some revenge on the Collins family, but not. I think the biggest difference between revenge plots and DS, because there are more severe revenge plots in DS than um, Sarah Johnson's crusade for the truth, is that she really, as much as she's prying on them, she begins to understand their honesty and dishonesty very quickly. And I think that's such a great trait in a character in Sarah Johnson. She really picks up on who's lying to her and who isn't. Even though sometimes she makes an accusation, once she sort of gets put in her place, she sort of goes, okay, I got to be careful with that, which is so great for a character. Um, but it's really, really cool that you get a character, Mrs. Johnson, who, when she's talking to Jason McGuire, there's a really cool scene between the two of them where Jason is talking to Mrs. Johnson, and Mrs. Johnson is telling Willie what she's sort of gonna miss Willie. And he's like, "Oh, really?" And he sort of doesn't want to believe that, and he even tells her that, and she goes, "Well, I don't approve of some of the things he was doing. Like he was asking a lot about the family." And Jason's like, "Your family?" And she goes, "No, he wouldn't get 2 words out of me about my family, about this family, the Collins family." And that's where Jason learns that Willie was asking about, was looking into the Collins family history from Mrs. Johnson. Now, the first time he really learns about Willie leaving on his own is through Victoria Winters. And there's no better character that you want to learn the truth from than Victoria Winters. She is like honest as honest comes. And she tells him she saw Willie leave with his bag. Now, Jason's sort of perplexed because Jason was going to was going to give Willie money, like $500, to leave Collinwood because Liz wanted him gone. Elizabeth wanted Willie to leave. And Jason was obliging her. And the reason really Jason obliges her is because 2 reasons. One, Carolyn and Victoria are very much afraid of Willie because Willie Loomis was hitting on Carolyn and harassing Carolyn and Vicky. James Hall really set the groundwork for all that. He really did a great job. I know he doesn't stick around long, James Hall, but he really did a great job as the early on Willie Loomis and really set some of the groundwork. And by the way, when David shows Willie Loomis the portrait of Barnabas, it's James Hall's Willie Loomis he shows it to, which is again interesting because right after that, you're gonna get John Carlin. John Carlin's gonna handle the some of the heavier lifting, the fighting between the choreographed fight between him and Burke, Mitchell Ryan's character. And really, some of the best arguments between Jason and Willie, some of the best dialogue. I think that's the thing too, where John Carlin really steals the show. Is the dialogue between him and Jason has really very much changed, and how quickly it's changed.
I'm back.
Yeah, hey man, how's it going?
Oh, it's
um,
fine. Sorry about that.
uh, yeah, it's all right. I was just talking to the audience, as killing some time till you got back. But I was saying about how James Hall's Willie Loomis really set the tone for Elizabeth wanting Willie Loomis gone. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, when he wanted him gone, it
Yeah,
makes sense that he'd want him gone. To be honest.
yeah. I mean, Elizabeth herself really, for those who don't know what happens, as I explained in the video previously, James Hall's Willie Loomis has been harassing Carolyn and Vicky, and Carolyn pulls her Uncle Roger's 6-shooter revolver from the drawer, and just like her Uncle Roger, that gun is loaded. Um, but she points it right at Willie Loomis, and she goes, "I'll shoot, I'll shoot." And this causes one of the biggest beefs, because you have Elizabeth stand. This is where Elizabeth really first stands her ground against Jason. When Carolyn sort of goes away and doesn't really want to be around Willie because he's dangerous, and Vicky doesn't really want to be around him either. But hey, David is her job as much as Collinwood is her home, so she sort of can't leave. And Elizabeth tells Jason, either he goes or I call the cops on this whole thing. And Jason sort of tests her, like, no, you won't do. And she picks up the phone. This is the first to let you know, Elizabeth's only going to let this go so far, because she's not going to let someone's life be in danger. And I think that's one of the best, in my opinion, qualities about Elizabeth, when she sort of is squaring off against Jason in a lot of ways. What do you think, Daniel?
Um, I'm not sure actually how to feel about that.
Yeah, she she hands up the phone on her, and he goes, okay, he'll go. And really, this is Jason giving in because he does not want any trouble. And really, I think he's letting Willie go because Willie sort of barged in on the whole thing anyway. He didn't want Willie in Collinwood right away.
Oh,
He
yeah, that's
wanted
true.
him. He wanted him in Collinsport, but not up at the house. So he wants him to go. And James Hall's last episode as Willie Loomis is when, and this is so great. David Collins is like showing with, leave it to David Collins to make BFFs with a thief who has a murderous complex. Only David Collins. I mean, David Collins would be BFFs with Michael Myers,
Oh yeah.
But he's showing, I like how he's showing Willie, James Hall's Willie Loomis, the portraits. He's showing him Jeremiah, Isaac, and then this is where we finally see the portrait of Barnabas Collins, Jonathan Frid's Barnabas Collins, obviously. It's really, really key that they show this portrait and they're showing it off. They're not, we've seen this again. This is not the last important portrait you will see, but it is probably the most important portrait you'll see.
It's interesting. We're
Good.
still sort of talking about the beginning episodes.
Yeah, and because really it all connects.
That's true. Yeah, that's
You
something I
know,
kind of hate, though. I mean, I don't hate that. I should be more clear. I hate how like on Tubi and probably other websites that have it, they have the beginning separate, like it's a different series, but it's actually obviously it's the same series.
Well, here's the thing too. I think the reason that got done is because there wasn't always a coffin box set. Now, for those who don't know this, when Dark Shadows was originally released, the Barnabas episodes were released on DVD first, I believe. Then the beginning episodes were out there individually. Like you could buy the episode, like the beginning in each, like as a like each disc. Like you could buy, not each disc, but season 1, season 2, season 3 of the beginning, right? Well, it's because there wasn't always a coffin box set, and I think a lot of streaming services stream it Dark Shadows this way because that's how it was initially released on. They separate it because they believe it is separate because that's how it was sort of presented on DVD. In a way, I don't think it was done on purpose. It's just how it was done. I don't think it was done. Oh, let's keep it separate, because it's not a separate series. It's not two separate series. It's one series, and I think that's why a lot of streaming services. I guarantee you, if Peacock, because Peacock has the early Barnabas episodes, and then it stops at a certain point. If Peacock ever puts all of Dark Shadows on its thing, I guarantee you they'll do the same thing. Unless a deal's made and someone tells them not to. But
Okay.
But I think a lot of streaming services are going to do this because that's just how Dark Shadows has been presented.
I think Hulu used to have the original series too. I don't think that I know Hulu. People said Hulu has the 1991 version, but I don't see it on there anymore.
It was on there for the longest time. That's actually where I rewatched the 91 revival. Was on Hulu, but it was like years ago. And I think people just think it's still on there. You're right, it wasn't on there when I last looked. But I'd like to think that the revival will land on another streaming service eventually, maybe Tubi too. Most likely. I mean, they're always looking for content and wanting it, which is nice. But I'm sort of wondering if because I don't, to my knowledge, the new Dark Shadows series hasn't found a home yet. I'm sort of wondering if other streaming services are waiting to pick up the revival until the new series is sort of picked up, because it doesn't just that's just my thought about it. I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, hopefully it does. Because I wouldn't mind watching those. Personally, I hope someday we actually do, the one of these videos for the revival.
Yeah, revival's really. I'll say this. Have you ever seen any of the Bond movies?
Oh yeah, I've seen them, but it's been a while. Like, I think for sure I've seen GoldenEye, and I know I've played the game. I'm pretty sure I've seen the movie too.
I'll say this, and I love Ben Cross as Barnabas. He is very underrated. Number one, number two, he doesn't try to be Jonathan Frid, and that is so important. But he's sort of like a James Bond Barnabas in a way. you'll
Oh,
you'll see when you see this thing. It's so like he's got such swagger as the character, and I mean he should, because I mean just the big similarity between Ben Cross and Jonathan is they're both accomplished actors when they take on the role. So it's not a shock that Ben Cross has this swagger. And the biggest difference, too, is in the 91 revival, they knew where they were taking Barnabas. In the 60s series, you see Jonathan Frid wringing his hands a lot. And it's because the writers didn't know where they were taking Barnabas. So Jonathan was sort of scared, like, what are they going to do with me here? um,
I heard wasn't Dan Curtis involved with making the revival as well though?
yeah, he was a big involvement in the revival. The original series had many parents, as my buddy Patrick McRae likes to say, and he's right. The writers, the producers were very much the original DS's parents. Dan Curtis was involved. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was behind the scenes. Hell, he directed I think 10 episodes of the original DS, probably a little more. But and by the way, a really fun tidbit too for Dark Shadows. I'll spoil this here for you now. It's not that big of a spoiler. When 1970 parallel time is happening, um, at the same time as the series is going on, the House of Dark Shadows movie is being filmed. So some of the cast aren't on the show, like Jonathan Frid, for example. He was off in Terrytown making House of Dark Shadows.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
So I mean that's one of the most fascinating things about DS. At the same time they're doing a television series, Dan Curtis was filming the House of Dark Shadows movie. Um, Quentin Patrick said, in his original daybook, he had said about David Selby was babysitting the audience. He's sort of right. He's right in a way. It's a lot of the cast is sort of babysitting audience, but they do a great job at it though too. Um, so with what did you think of Alexander Molke's voiceovers for the show, Daniel?
Um, the voiceovers.
Yeah,
Do you mean like those things at the beginning?
yeah.
Oh yeah, those were pretty good. Oh yeah, sorry about that.
No, no. Well, what's really cool is too because they are going to have different people do the voiceovers here. I believe it's sometime during 1795, um, or right after. It's one of those two. But I mean, when people ask me who's the best voiceover, to me, it's not because she did the most. Um, it's Alexander Moltke Isles. I mean, my God, when she reads the opening for night is drawing nearer and nearer, and you're getting the sense something big is going to happen. And it basically it's the episode Barnabas shows up, knocks on the goddamn door, and Mrs. Johnson answers it, and it's like, oh shit. What did you think of Barnabas's entrance at Collinwood, Daniel?
Oh yeah, I thought it was pretty creative. Like he lied to them and said that he was actually their cousin and was named after their ancestor. Well, not, I mean,
Yeah, he has the how's he put it? I'm his namesake. Oh my god. And I love how they're pointing out the portrait and how identical he looks to it and shit. It's like one of the best lines too by Nancy Barrett, Carolyn says it's a portrait of him. And it's like, oh shit, are they gonna figure him out? Like, are they the writers did a great job, sort of like, but because the thing of it is, because the whole Jason McGuire thing is still going on, they sort of can't. I think that's one of the most unsung things about the S that you're going to continue to see. I know you're going to continue to see as you go along. Is the writers always had a way of sort of misdirecting the other characters on in every way on purpose because they're not trying because if you have too much information in Collinwood or Collinsport, you are deader than Judith Myers on Halloween.
what makes the painting interesting is apparently Jonathan Frid wasn't actually the model for the painting.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess the
That is,
reason why is, at the time they didn't have him cast yet.
yeah, that's true. He when they were doing the painting, it was, I believe it was Ron Sprout who modeled for Barnabas. Um and who was, I believe, was in the coffin, if memory serves, when Willie opens it. It's not Jonathan in the coffin. It's Ron Sprout, I believe. Um so they have this, when they cast Jonathan, they obviously do a portrait of Jonathan. But right, the person sitting for it was not Jonathan initially. It was somebody else. It was Ron Sprout, and he's the one in the coffin, I believe, as well. Um, it's really, really cool that they were able to do that and still get a great. Again, Dark Shadows made do with what it had, and every time they added something, they always up the ante. So here's Jonathan Fritz Barnabas, who's coming on, and he's introducing himself to the family and stuff, like Elizabeth, Victoria. My favorite, I gotta tell you this, my favorite introduction is when him and David meet at the old house. It is criminally underrated. But who's your favorite family member that Barnabas meets?
Um, I would say Roger.
Yeah, Lewis Edmonds. Oh my god. Oh my god. Because he know the one Rogers notices a lot of things that the other family members don't. To Daniel's, I love your selection, Roger. He notices the ring. He notices the onyx ring, and it's like he points it out to the family. Roger does. He points it out to all the family members. He goes, "Did you see it?" And they're like, "No, what?" That ring. He was wearing that ring. It's such a little great segue by the writers and the actor. I mean, Lewis Edmonds was I mean, they were all pros, but Lewis Edmonds is just fun to watch at times when he's. I mean, he's always fun to watch, but just him being on screen is just pure joy.
Well, there's an interesting fact about the ring. I don't know if you noticed, but in some episodes, it's actually on his. It's on the other hand.
Yeah, yeah. I think again, that's just That's just. I think one, it's a continuity, and just again, they didn't. I think this too. This goes into, they didn't know where they were taking Barnabas, so Jonathan is switching the ring around. Not remembering, because again, there was for those who don't know, Dark Shadows use teleprompters, and usually it was only one. And Jonathan had, you know, Joan Bennett would help him with his lines, but he was always searching for the teleprompter, so he probably wasn't focusing on which finger the onyx ring was on.
Yeah, I could see that.
But one of my favorite moments too is when Barnabas talks to the portrait of Josette. God, what David tells him: if you're a Collins, she'll help you. And this is where you find out, well before 1795, that Barnabas knew Josette up and down. Now you don't know he was going to marry her, but you do get the complete sense of, holy shit, he knows her. Like he knows her. I mean, personally, whether as a friend or anything else. And he just looks up and he goes, because David goes back to the great house. So Barnabas is by himself in the old house, and Barnabas looks up at the portrait and goes, "I was a Collins. Where were you when I was turned into something even my own father loathed?" I mean, by Jonathan Frid just nails these lines, and man, It's eerie, but it's also sort of sad too, because he always got the sense Barnabas, Jonathan Fritz Barnabas, sounded hurt more so than mad. But what's your view on that?
Yeah, I actually agree with you. He sounded more hurt than mad.
Yeah, I I love the line too when he tells her, "If my father, if my father's ghost is here with yours, tell him I've come home. I am free now and alive." And he's sort of somewhat smiling to live the life I've never had, whatever that may turn out to be. And that's sort of a to the writers, um, which is fun. The writers are sort of poking fun at themselves because they don't know where they're taking Barnabas yet. And they weren't. I think that's the beautiful part about the character originally, too. The writers weren't sure where they were taking him because originally the plan, according to Dan Curtis in many interviews, and it is he was only supposed to be on for like a month or two, and they were going to kill him off. And Jonathan Fritz's character became very popular, and Fred himself became popular, and well, the character stayed and stayed obviously. Um, where I'm going to ask you this because I ask everybody this. Where, because 1795 technically doesn't start until the time travel, but to me, there's always a hint of sort of where it's sort of, it's somewhat coming when you watch the series. That where do you think that moment is prior to the seance?
Um, I would say like kind of when they find out that like when they see Sarah's gravestone.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. For now, there's an interesting moment too before I give you guys mine. uh Prior to, after the, well, I'll just go ahead and give one. For me, the moment you sort of know something big is coming is the death of Dr. Dave Woodard. I mean, it's because Barnabas does the killing. I mean, Barnabas kills him. And this in every way is turning Julia babyface, because Julia doesn't kill him. If they had Julia stick that needle in him, it's over. They're not turning Julia babyface. But Julia doesn't do it. But she is a bystander in all of it. But she's so distraught over Dave Woodard's death, she's like forgetting the needle and stuff. But for me, it's the death of Dave Woodard. Sarah is a big thing because she's the reason that Vicky's going back in time. Um, but there's this moment in 363 where Dr. Julia Hoffman, is in the mausoleum. She's already met Sarah. And there's this woman weeping in the mausoleum. Now, I just assume the woman is either Josette or Naomi, Barnabas's mother. But then there's this woman laughing, a wicked woman. And I always get goosebumps when I hear it. I know it's not Laura Parker's legendary Angelique laugh that you're going to get to hear. But I got to believe that in many ways, this is sort of, it's not the complete introduction of Angelique, but it's somewhat the introduction that there's at least something more going on with Barnabas. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, I'd say there's more, like more going on, like you said.
Yeah. In many ways, it's sort of the introduction of Angelique without Laura Parker, but her entrance is pretty is really really good. The I love. I'll spoil this one thing for you. The episode she arrives in is actually in black and white. Some of the 1795 episodes are in black and white. They do still do episodes in black and white for Dark Shadows. Now they become less and less, and you'll see that. But it's really, really cool. I mean, the performances in 1795 are golden. Um, Let's see. What did you think of the kidnapping of Maggie Evans?
Oh, I will admit, I kind of saw, Barnabas as a bad guy because I was thinking, wow, it's really messed up. He's trying to turn her into Josette.
he, I like how the scene with him and there's a scene with him and John Carlin that is somewhat humorous. John Carlin's down there building this coffin, Willie Loomis, and Barnabas is like, "Aren't you proud of this?" like, like, and Willie's like, "Yeah, whatever." Oh shit!
It's actually funny you say that because I know it's, later in the series, but for some reason when Carolyn said, a bat, a giant bat, I thought that was funny.
Right, because it's like eh, he's because at that point it's like a giant bat, like holy shit. But right, because Barnabas tries to drive David insane, and by the way, eventually Carolyn gets recruited by Barnabas because uh, the cure that Julia Hoffman has is starting to work. But Barnabas says, "Well, increase the dosage like an idiot," and so she does, like a bigger idiot. What doctor just screw it. I'll just listen to him. And I really think this is just Julia has just had enough of Barnabas's shit. Really is why she does it, honestly, I think. Because he tries to poison him too. And so she gives him this injection. He starts turning old. And so Barnabas goes from young man to he needs his AARP card because he looks old. And then he bites Carolyn and then he reverts back to young again. I What's really criminal is they set up I think one of the most messed up parts too, and it's like this is the thanks Willie gets for serving Barnabas. He gets framed for kidnapping Maggie. Um, what are your thoughts about that?
Oh, yeah. Um, it kind of makes sense, because he tried to, we know, he tried to warn her.
Yeah.
But it does make sense if you think about it, because there's no reason to suspect Barnabas, and Willie, as we talked about, already did all those bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean Willie's criminal record comes back to haunt him here. I mean, he's had some pretty shady stuff go on. I it just it does not pay to be a criminal in Collinsport because the police will find out about you. I think that's the thing about the Collinsport Police Department. It's such a small town; they have nothing better to do. There's no crime there, so these guys have nothing better to do to spend time at the gun range and shoot their guns. They probably have pictures of Willie Loomis up there now, um, because he just what I find really interesting too with Dark Shadows, and I know it's not real bullets, obviously, but the most fun thing is Willie's like standing near this glass double doored entrance in Matt at the Evans cottage, outside the Evans cottage, and you hear there he is, open fire, and they like cap Willie. I think he gets shot more times than Michael Myers did in the first Halloween movie. But they cap Willie, and they do not. No bullet touches the glass. I'm thinking, man, there's some sharpshooters on that police squad. Oh my god. What do you think of the Collinsport Police Department, Daniel?
I'd say you're probably right. They probably, they have nothing better to do, so they probably practice, on that they got range.
I mean, they live in a town where you got this big rich family that owns this cannery, So they're in a fishing town, a fishing village in a sense. There's no crime. They're bored. Hell, the sheriff half the time sits around. Uh, it's like, where's all his deputies? They're at the gun range. But it's crazy that you literally. I love how Sheriff George Patterson, Dana Elker, comes in when Willie's laying in bed there after his men like capped his ass, and Julie is like playing with the needle in Willie's arm. She's gonna pull it out to kill him, and Sheriff George Patterson's like, "What are you doing, Dr. Hoffman?" And she doesn't realize that Dave Woodard had told Patterson about Julia being at Collinwood, and D- Dave Woodard saved Julia here. Oh, she's been helping me. She's been a big help to me. And like, yeah, like Barnabas sent her to kill Willie. She doesn't get it done, but Willie. I'll say this about our buddy Barnabas, Daniel. He is the worst person to frame somebody. He's like the worst framer upper ever. Like really, like Maggie's Evan inside a candlestick holder. Like really, really, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and then he like knocks it over. Like, oops. And then there's Maggie's ring, and it's like they buy it too. I mean, I get the writers are like just tying some. Basically, they're writing filler. I mean, that's what this is here. There are some filler episodes in Dark Shadows, and that's what this is. And I know it's part of the plot too, but it's also filler because they got to sort of write off John Carlin and make Carolyn an important character, even more important character. And Carolyn is important, but she's gonna become more important being by Barnabas's side. And man, Carolyn somewhat enjoys that power of knowledge of being Barnabas's servant. It's creepy as hell. I do. I gotta admit, because he gets introduced before 1795, I do love the emergence of Tony Peterson, um, which is oh my god, I'm gonna kick myself because he plays Reverend Trask too. Jerry Lacey's character, um, he sort of looks like Humphrey Bogart a bit.
Oh yeah, another thing, for those that don't know, sometimes characters are played by different actors later on too.
Yep. Burke Devlin gets recast. Mitchell Ryan's character.
I don't know if it's true, but it says on the wiki the reason he was replaced was because of alcoholism.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Um, Mitchell Ryan. See, because here's the thing: on Dark Shadows, the booze is real.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
the sherry, the booze, it's real.
Oh, I know Sam Evans was replaced, but that actually happened very early on.
Yeah, the guy who originally played Sam Evans, for everything I read, apparently he was spying on Alexander Moltke in the dressing room, which you should not do. But that was one of the more crazy ones. But yeah, Mitchell Ryan, sorry, he was suffering from alcoholism, so he had to leave. Unfortunately, he had to be written off. And I seriously think the reason, because you notice when Anthony George is playing Burke Devlin, they keep saying Anthony George has replaced Mitchell Ryan. Anthony George is the new Burke Devlin. I sort of think they're doing this and hoping. I think they're trying to prolong Anthony George's character being written off the show, because I think they're somewhat hoping that Mitchell Ryan will return, but that's just, I'd like to think not, because I gotta believe they knew it was pretty bad for, that it was bad enough he had to leave the show. But I always found it weird that they keep saying, well, Anthony playing Burt Devlin, Anthony George. I'm thinking, okay, how many times are you going to tell me that? I know who's playing Burt Devlin now. Um, I always found it a little bit strange. So I got to ask you this: Burt Devlin alive or dead?
Um, that's actually a good question. I think he's dead, but that's not really confirmed because you never really know. Maybe he survived in the jungle somehow or something.
Yeah, I think he's alive now, and battling the Amazon and battling the drug dealers in the Amazon. Basically, I think Burt Devlin became the Phantom. Um, no, um, but I do think Mitchell Ryan's character, Burt Devlin, is alive. I think the ghost more Vicky sees is more in her own conscience, simply because she's starting to believe that Burke is dead. So I think it's more Vicky's own conscience that's sort of playing on her. I love that Anthony George's Jeremiah Collins is really, really good. It's better than his Burke Devlin performance, but I mean, I'll say this because Anthony George, I've heard that Anthony George didn't like being on Dark Shadows, so, but for even though if that's true, he didn't show it. I mean, he didn't mail in his performances. I think he did a really good job, even as Burke. Now he's no Mitchell Ryan, and that shows in a lot of ways. But I do think he did a good job for what it was. What do you think, Daniel?
I think you did a good job.
Yeah. Now, so you're in 1795. What are your early impressions so far?
I like how Vicky keeps seeing like people who look like people she knows, and like she saw the one lady that looks like Mrs. Johnson. And she said, "Oh, it was a dream after all, but it's not."
Yeah, they're sort of doing the Wizard of Oz bit a bit. They're actually a little tidbit. This isn't too much of a spoiler. They're gonna do sort of similar when she comes back, but not too much.
Okay.
But she, you're right. She's like, "Oh, Mrs. Johnson, it's you." No, it's not Mrs. Johnson. My favorite. I don't. Well, they should have done this by now, but my favorite is when she sees Ben Stokes because Thayer, for those who don't know, Thayer David plays Ben Stokes, and he played Matthew Morgan. Well, the second Matthew Morgan, I should say. But so when she sees Ben Stokes, she's like scared because she's like, "Oh my God, Matthew, you're alive." Oh shit. Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh my God. What did you think when she was standing there looking at the old house?
Oh, I'm not sure how to. I'm not sure how. Oh, I guess I did like how it looked. Obviously it looked newer because it's more recent.
Yeah. The sad part is now they do use the old house as the house they use as a backdrop for the old house is no longer standing. It actually burns down in 1968, which sucks. But because again, they're not using the inside of the house. They're on a sound stage. They're on a set. Um, but the house they use as the backdrop ends up burning down in 1968. But I do love all the shots they get of the house because it's, even though it's gone, it still looks so good.
Yeah, that does suck,
Yeah. Now the Collinwood is still standing. What was once known as the Seaview Terrace is still standing. It's in Rhode Island. Oh my god. But they actually, now in the beginning episodes, they do film episodes at the house of Vicky walking outside, Vicky leaving the house. But eventually they go away from that and just use the backdrop of that house. What do you think of now? What do you think of some of the 1795 characters so far?
Oh, I think the Collins seem pretty cool, and the guy that's played by the same guy as Rick Devlin, he seems pretty cool. Oh yeah, that's Jeremiah, right?
Yeah, Anthony George is playing Jeremiah Collins. What's really, I won't say because it'll spoil it, but you'll see, and then when you come back, when we discuss Jeremiah, there's some really suspect history written about our buddy Jeremiah.
Oh yeah. Actually, to be honest, I should have remembered him. I hate to admit this, but I should have remembered him, because that was sort of Barnabas's problem, is Burt Devlin looked like Jeremiah.
Yeah, he called him Jeremiah too at the party.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, now the guy that's played by the same guy as Joe Haskell, um, he was like, kind of pushy towards Vicky.
Yeah, Joel Carruthers is playing Lieutenant Nathan Forbes in 1795. It's a much different character than what Joe. She calls him Joe. She goes, Joe, thank God. But and he's like, I don't know who Joe is, but I'll be whoever you want me to be.
Yeah.
Joe, you could tell Joel Carruthers had some fun with this character too, and you're gonna see how much fun he has with it. But I mean, what a great actor. It's sad he passed away very young, but
Oh, that's not good.
um, yeah, he great actor. I mean, Joel Carruthers was really good. I mean, just spot on. Um, I'll give you my favorite character, and I don't get me wrong, I love it. I love me some Angelique, but by God, Lewis Edmonds, fucking dude, he steals 1795 in a lot of way. Um, as Joshua Collins, I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody pretty much does end up stealing 1795. Laura Parker especially as Angelique. But Lewis Edmonds, Josh was, holy shit, he's great. Oh shit. But you will see. It is criminally good. 1795. It is not boring. That's for sure. Vicky, I won't say what happens to Vicky, but there's some stuff that goes down for sure.
Isn't there a second? Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but isn't there a second like Laura Collins Phoenix arc?
Yes, there is. Not in this one though. Not in 1795.
Oh, okay.
In 1897, they bring back Diana Malay to play the Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
That is really good. I won't spoil it for you, but yeah, you're right. They do bring her back, and there's a bit of a square off between her and Angelique.
Oh.
Oh shit! I won't spoil too much more because I sort of spoiled something a bit. This though 1795 is a journey and a half. I mean, this is I mean, this is the Barnabas Collins arc, or sorry, origin story, because the arc started in 211, but this is Barnabas's origin story in every way. I mean, so you are in, my friend, you are in for one hell of a ride. Um, it is just a obviously people know this. Dark Shadows is my favorite TV show of all time. Great show. I mean, there's even there are some things in there. It's like eyebrow raising, but it's a show that is fun to watch. Pure entertainment. But what so far in the Barnabas Collins arc, what shocked you most so far?
Honestly, I know this is gonna surprise people because it's not really like horrifying or anything. But the thing that surprised me the most is when he turned into an old man.
Yeah.
I knew they said something might happen, but I wasn't expecting that. It's like, what?
I like how he's like peeking through the window. That's an old man. Oh my god. Uh, I'll tell you what. When I first watched this back in the '90s, what shocked me prior to 1795, and literally it shocked me for two reasons. One, I didn't think Barnabas was gonna try to do it because of Sarah, but him trying to drive David insane is holy shit, is it cruel?
I agree.
And Jonathan Fred, see, there was no daytime Emmys yet, but if there would have been, Jonathan Fred would have been receiving them left and right. God, I mean, he's that good. So is the rest of the cast, but that's something that shocked me when I first watched this, and still does to a degree. It's like, I mean, look, David, don't get me wrong. David has done some pretty sinister things himself and has done some questionable acts. But damn, because he himself tried to drive Vicky crazy. Um, but when it's, I guess when it's an adult and then a kid, it's like holy shit. But yeah, that shocks me still to this day. Um, Again, don't get me wrong. David is a questionable kid. Uh, do you, here's one for you. Do you think David would hang out with some serial killers?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, this seems like he might, but then again, he might actually see that they're serial killers and then be like, you know, not want to hang out with them. He might even go, Miss Winters, Miss Winters.
Yeah. I like that. I like that impression, Daniel. That was good. That was really good. Yes. Yeah, Miss Winters, Miss Winters. Uh, Vicky, Vicky might be checking out after that. Like, yeah, you handle it, David. You're good. No, but I tell you what's really underrated too, for me, prior to the 1795, is really John Carlin's constant performance as Willie Loomis. It's one of the most underrated things about the Barn. John Carlin and Jonathan Fritz chemistry is spot on. It's really good. And it's one of the most unsung things prior to 1795. It is criminally good. What did you think of it, Daniel?
Oh, sorry, what was it again?
John Carlin and Jonathan Fritz chemistry, Willie Loomis and Barnabas.
Oh, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean it's really good, but it's my God. I'll say this: there's going to be a moment they're going to need somebody, and I won't say who they go and get, but you're gonna laugh what they need him for. Um, oh God. Um, there's going to be a lot of other actors who join in on 1795. Roger Davis, obviously Jerry Lacey is going to be in 1795. Laura Parker's character is going to get introduced in 1795. Angelique. Um, let's see. You do. What's his name? The guy who's going to play Dr. Eric Lang gets introduced in this arc as a judge. So there's people who you're going to see later on Dark Shadows who get introduced in 1795, which is really, really cool. Amazing show. So far, what do you think of it?
I think it's pretty good. And I'm not just saying that, like, I really do,
Yeah. What so far, what's some of your favorite moments so far?
I would say, obviously when Barnabas, comes out of the coffin.
Yeah.
Think of a few others. I'd say when, like you were talking about, when Barnabas kills Dave Woodard.
Yeah, that's holy.
Oh, and I would also say when Sarah showed up, and this might shock some people, but I kind of guessed like pretty early on that was Barnabas's sister.
Yeah. I love how when they introduced her, I believe the first time they introduced her, the episode's in black and white. Because they don't go to color until Maggie escapes from Wincliffe and returns to Collinsport, and Burke and Vicky and Barnabas are sitting in the Blue Whale. Now, initially, the episode's shot in black and white, but when they do it again, that's the end sequence of it. When they redo it, it's in color. And again, there are 1795 episodes in color, and there are 1795 episodes in black and white. They're not done using black and white, which I love. I love the mixture with Dark Shadows. It's very, because I don't just think it's a budget thing. Like, you know what I mean? I think it's a directional thing that, you know what, let's shoot this in black and white. I think it'll look better. And some of it does.
Oh, I didn't know that was done intentionally. I thought, like, because I know some episodes they didn't have the master tapes for anymore. I thought the black and white episodes were a result of that.
Yeah, I think so too. That some of them they didn't have the master tapes, but there are just some really good episodes that are in black and white that you're going to see. And there are some. Don't get me wrong. There are some great episodes in color. Some of my favorite episodes in color are during the Atom arc, which you'll see. But eventually. So, is there anything you want to add, man, about Dark Shadows?
I probably should mention this. We're talking about the movies, but one weird thing about I guess it's not really about the show itself, but what's weird about Jonathan Frid is, I don't know if you know this, but the last thing he was in was the 2012 movie Dark Shadows.
Yeah, he was in a cameo. Yeah.
It's kind of weird that he was known for Dark Shadows, then the last thing he was in was a cameo of Dark Shadows.
Yeah, him. There's a scene in the 2012 movie where Johnny Depp's Barnabas is standing by the door. They're having a party at Collinwood, a happening, they call it. And Jonathan Frid, Catherine Lee Scott, David Selby, and Laura Parker all walk in. That's Barnabas, Maggie, Quentin, Angelique, all walk in. Not as their characters, obviously, but still. Yeah, that's the last thing he did, unfortunately, and he died shortly after it, which sucked. But I mean, look. I always think very fondly of Jonathan Frid. Man, he's awesome. I mean, I would, when his old website was up, he had this poetry up. That's another reason I support the jonathanfrid.org thing. I mean, it's so cool to hear Jonathan's voice doing these readings. You know, it's really, really cool. Uh, not just because he was on dark shows. Yeah, that is a huge reason. I love his character, Barnabas Collins. I love the way he portrayed him. Uh, great actor for sure.
I oh yeah, I think he's a pretty good actor too, but I'm not as familiar as him as you are.
Yeah, I know. You're really you're gonna notice a lot of things about Barnabas in 1795 too, like how his father. Well, Joshua treats everybody like fucking second class citizen. I mean, God.
Oh yeah. Well, you said about his website and stuff. The well said.
Yeah, he. Look, I love the new site they have up, the jonathanfred.org, and his old website was so cool. I mean, he'd have Shakespeare readings up and shit, and I'd listen to that stuff for hours. Really great stuff. He had a great voice. He's this great actor. He chose to leave Hollywood and television and go back to the stage. I mean, he loved the stage. And you could see what you can see a lot of Jonathan's stage performance on television, really within Dark Shadows. I mean, you'll see that throughout 1795, really, how well of a stage actor he is because of how he's performing on TV. You're definitely going to see it a lot in 1795. I mean, we saw a lot of it too during the beginning arc of Barnabas. Just really good.
I also want to say it kind of sucks that the revival didn't make it further, because if they decided to redo the part where he became an old man, they could have had Jonathan Frid actually reprise the role.
Yeah, want to hear something weird? In the revival, they don't necessarily have him become an old man. They like Ben Cross is like sweating bullets when the cure is like going through his bloodstream and shit. And so this Professor Woodard is calling him out, like right in his own home with the sheriff. And he gets off his bed and he's sweating and he's standing in like by the window, which the sunlight's hitting him, and he doesn't burst into flames or nothing. And Ben Cross is just standing there sweating. He's even though he's sweating, Ben Cross has all this sweat and looks like he's gonna faint. Ben Cross has all this swagger about it, and it's so good. Oh god. But yeah, Ben Cross did a great job as his Barnabas. So
that's good. Yeah.
there's too in the revival now. Joanna Goins plays Victoria Winters. Lizette Anthony plays Lizette Anthony. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Anthony plays Angelique. So yeah, I mean the revival did only last one season, unfortunately. Good shit though for one season. I mean they did a good job.
Oh yeah.
You know who's also in that too is Barbara Steele.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, from the Hammer movies. Like, holy shit. She plays Dr. Hoffman.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, they really don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say the 1991 revival was cast better than the original, but their cast is really great. Jim Fay's Willie Loomis is underrated too. Jim Fay's Willie Loomis really underrated. And what they do too is they make Willie Loomis related to Mrs. Johnson in the revival.
That's kind of weird.
Like there's no Jason McGuire. Willie's already living there with his aunt Sarah, Mrs. Johnson, and he's just like she has all the hope in the world that this young man will turn his life around. How little she knows he's about to become a servant to a vampire.
Yeah.
No, really, really good. What I love most about the revival, they put for the most part, for a lot of the characters, they put a fresh coat of paint on most of the original characters, which was smart.
That's true. Yeah. There's another thing. That for those that might seem kind of weird about Dark Shadows. It's something you kind of got to think about though. Um, well, as if Barnabas actually got with Vicky, that would be kind of weird because it's revealed later on, that Vicky is actually Elizabeth's daughter.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We all know it as fans. It's not been technically revealed in the series. It hasn't been revealed in the series, but everybody knows it by now. So, well, here's the thing too. I mean, look, Barnabas bites Carolyn, but that it would have been interesting if Barnabas would have got with Vicky, but I love the fact that oh well, no wait, that's later on. I can't spoil that for you. I'll just say this: there's going to be a scene with Alexandra and Jonathan Frid, and they're in a car. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. Oh my god. Watch out for the pedestrians. Anyway. It's so good. I don't but yeah, it Dark Shadows in every way. It has a lot of horror, it has a lot of darkness to it, but it has these funny moments too. Like something's gonna happen to Joshua in the arc. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it's funny as hell. Oh my god. Is there anything you want to add, Daniel?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay. Link to my buddy Daniel Culver's channel is going to be in the description box. Go check out his channel at Killenberg. He's at Killenberg on Twitter. Daniel Culver on Facebook. Go at it. Go give him a follow. Man, it is always a pleasure talking to you. I'll say this too about the revival before we go. One of the most underrated things about it is not that it's just different. It attempts to be different in every way, even when they go back into the past. And it especially the past too. I mean, really, really good. But man, thank you for joining me for this. This is a lot of fun.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you later on Facebook.
Yep, you too.
Yep, bye.